outside noise the whole year, but especially this week, you're a human. How do you block that out and continuously just look forward and just focus on what's important to you and not listening to what's coming from the outside?
I mean, it's a good question. I think that the number one thing for me is if you take all that away and you look at what I'm doing right now, I'm living out my dream of playing college football at the highest level for a team that I've been a captain for 4 years, for a community that has had my back and realistically has been very good to me. So I can't get mad at people being critical, and I won't get mad at people being critical. I'm just blessed to be in the position that I am. I'm living out a dream that I've had for years and years and years. So for me, I don't really pay attention to it because like I'm just like the happiest dude. I mean, it sucks to lose, that's for sure. And don't get me wrong, I would love to win every game, obviously, very competitive. But at the same time, I wake up every day, win or lose, a very happy person just because, not many people get to experience this. So taking every day as a blessing for sure.
Welcome to Football Letter Live. Tonight we welcome Letterman cornerback David Macklin, a 3-year starter for Penn State, who was named to the All-Big Ten team in 1998 when he led the conference with 6 interceptions. We also welcome Chris Mason, grandson of Joe Mason, who we know is credited with the creation of the Nittany Lion mascot. Chris will share some family background and history and tell a few stories about Grandpa Joe. Football Live is member supported, and we're so grateful to have your support. If you're a Penn Stater, you belong in the Alumni Association. And if you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Well, welcome into the show, Penn Staters. We have a great one lined up for you tonight. The Nittany Lions get back on their winning ways on the road at Indiana. Tonight, we're going to talk with David Macklin. We have him back here, a star cornerback for the Nittany Lions. We're also going to talk to Chris Mason. He's going to tell you a little bit about his grandfather, Joe Mason, who we all know is credited with giving Penn State our Nittany Lion mascot. But before we do that, let's go ahead and bring our co-host in. As always, John Petishnock. John, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Paul. Good evening. Good evening to everyone tuning in. Had some fun talking with David and Chris before we go live tonight. Going to hear some really good stories from Chris. Going to see some good photos. And I got to tell you, I went back and saw David's highlights. David he epitomizes the hard-hitting defensive back. And so you did not want to come across his way if you were a Big Ten receiver in the late 90s. And so we'll show some of his highlights, get some of his thoughts on his days at Penn State and also what he's up to now, and which is also very exciting. So really nice show tonight leading into the Maryland game on Saturday.
Absolutely. John, good video to open the show with the highlights on the road at Indiana, both what we do from an alumni association perspective in terms of rallying the pep and getting people excited before the game, and then our on-field performance, which I think is getting us back to where we've become accustomed to the Nittany Lions playing at a high level. Great defense. We're able to run the football, some amazing catches by our wide receivers, get back to our winning ways.
Yeah, and look, Penn State was expected to beat Indiana, I mean, as always, but like coming off that game against Ohio State, we talked about that in the letter, the team could have gone one in two ways. And so the way that the team came out last Saturday, convincingly beating a team that they should have in the way that they did, you would think that's going to bode well for the team running the table the rest of the year, 10-2, positioning themselves for another big time bowl game. And so just really impressive, I think, on both sides of the ball. You see Katron Allen. I saw somebody made the comment, and it was so good. This time last year, there were kids in high school trying to tackle Katron Allen. And so very difficult in high school, let alone in college. And so him and Nick Singleton and Drew Aller, I'll say this, there's a ton of talent on this team. But whether, So Kobe King talked about how he's gotten into meditation. After the game Saturday, Brennan Strange talked about James Franklin's message is to be where your own 2 feet are. Those things deal a lot with being in the moment. And so I'm not in the business of telling fans and alumni how they should feel, but I will say this. I think you lose something if you're constantly looking to the future and thinking about what might happen, because you're missing what actually is happening right now in front of you this season. And so as much young talent as there is on this team, like, this team might very well go to the Rose Bowl. And, there are some fans who just think, like, let's just get Drew Aller in and move forward. Like, this team understands there's a lot to play for this season. And certainly, coming out against Indiana the way that they did, you would think that should carry them throughout the rest of the month of November.
Yeah, don't wish today away by thinking about tomorrow, right? Live in the moment. A great perspective by our quarterback, Sean Clifford. I don't want to say that Sean's polarizing, but the fan base is certainly polarized around talking about Sean. And to hear his perspective on living out his dream, right? Being grateful for the opportunity that he has for as long as he's going to have it, tells me that at least he is centered, and his mind is where he needs to be successful on and off the football field.
Yeah, and look, he's put in the work. As James Franklin said, he deserves to be in this position. But what I wouldn't do to be 22 back in college, like, to be in that position. And so, you know what, Sean? Enjoy it. Just don't, I'm not saying ignore what people are saying, but focus on what's important to you. And that was what the question was about. And I thought that was a really good question from one of the student reporters. But yeah, it was just a good weekend in Indiana. Our Cincinnati chapter came over, as you mentioned. We had Kelly Lynch, Pat Kraft speaking, our ace photographer, Steve Manuel, kind of shepherding everybody over to Bart Kaufman Field to get that group photo. And so just really good stuff. And of course, we'll see our alumni and fans next weekend in Rutgers for the Roar Tour. You're seeing the scene in this past weekend here in Bloomington.
Absolutely. If you haven't been to a Roar Tour and you're living in New Jersey, come on out. We'd love to see you and love to have you experience the energy and the excitement and this really family atmosphere that we have on the road when we go get ready for Nittany Lion football. John, we now have turned our attention to Maryland. Maryland is coming into Happy Valley. I think they are the first team that we are playing that has, at least this deep in the season, that has a winning record. They come in bowl eligible. They're 6-3, right? This is their biggest game of the year. If you ask Maryland fans, right, they'll tell you their rival is Penn State. I don't know that we would describe it that way, but we know we're going to get their best effort when they come into Happy Valley.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, at least from my perspective, I see Maryland as, I don't see them as a rival, but I do see that as a game that can generate some real, genuine excitement. Of course, there's history with James Franklin and that program. Mike Loxley is doing a really nice job with Maryland. And so, and for what it's worth, beating a 6-win Maryland team at this point in the year, if Maryland goes on to win 8 games, that's great for Penn State. If they win on Saturday, you want to beat Maryland. You want to beat as many teams with the winning record as you can, because the college football playoff rankings are going to be scrutinized over the next month. And so this was, from a record standpoint, this will probably be the best game that Penn State has to make its case for the final standings. Of course, you've got Michigan State surging a little bit. That might be overstating it. But certainly that's going to be a good game to end the season. But I think it helps Penn State's chances when you've got Maryland coming in on a good year, on a year that they are going to go to a bowl. And to your point, they're going to be tuned up a little bit, probably more than a little bit for Saturday. And so, Chop Robinson, there's a lot of connection there between Penn State and Maryland. And so when you've got that type of dynamic, when so many of the guys on the teams played against each other in high school, certainly I think that adds a different or an additional dynamic to what should already be a good game.
Yeah. John, before we get to our guests, I want to give a special shout out to Vincent Longaro. He is our producer. He is not with us again tonight. He's at home in Michigan, and I just wanted to know that we are thinking about him in Happy Valley as he attends to some family issues back in Michigan. But it's not the same without Vincent here in the background, but we're gonna try to make it work for our audience tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that kind of transition, we've got a couple of really great guests tonight. Chris Mason, David Macklin, And Chris Mason, not your typical guest. He's got a very strong Penn State family connection that we'll ask him about. So what do you think, Paul? You want to bring him on and we can kind of go over a little bit about Grandpa Joe?
Absolutely. Grandfather Joe, credited with creating the Nittany Lion mascot. He attended Penn State, played baseball. He's a historian by profession, an expert on Afghanistan. He's an assistant professor of national security at the Strategic Studies Institute. Chris, welcome to Football Letter Live.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on. This is fun. Great to chat a little bit about Grandpa Joe and the creation of the Lion mascot.
Yeah, as a historian, you probably have to love this. I know when we were talking earlier in the week, you actually didn't get the opportunity to meet your grandfather. So a lot of what you're going to share with us tonight is family lore handed down generation after generation.
Yeah, that's right. Grandpa Joe was always there. And whenever the family got together, the family's always been close to Penn State. Grandpa was older when he went to Penn State. Actually, he was 25 when he started as a freshman in 1904. Older than people are today when they start college. And he played baseball for the Penn State baseball team for 4 years, and that was really where the Lion legend started, was at that famous game with Princeton.
Yeah, absolutely. There was no NCAA back then, and so maybe he probably played 6 years too, I bet, on the baseball team. At what point growing up did you start to learn and understand the impact that your grandfather had at Penn State?
Well, probably when I was 8 or 10. I went to high school and State College. The Nittany Lion Shrine was always there. It was always something that I was aware of. We always talked about Grandpa Joe. He did pass in 1949, 6 years before I was born. But he was so much a part of the family story that he was just always there in the background in my life. Although, going to high school in State College in the late 60s and early 1970s, there wasn't that much awareness of the backstory of the Lion mascot as there is today. The sign about Joe Mason that was in front of the shrine for many years wasn't erected until sometime after I left high school.
And it seems like the lore and the story around your grandfather naming and giving Penn State the moniker as the Penn State Nittany Lions, it's something that I feel like I hear about all the time. I know there are organizations on campus that uphold traditions like the Lion Ambassadors, like the Lion Scouts, that now regularly tell the story of Joe Mason. It's a name that remains kind of in the Penn State in the Penn State history nowadays. So for people who don't know the story, go ahead and share how we became the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Sure. There is a stuffed Eastern Mountain Lion, a Nittany Lion, at the Penn State All Sports Museum on display now. That was hunted and stuffed in the 1850s and by a hunter named Samuel Brush, and that stuffed mountain lion. It's the only surviving example of the Nittany Lion that we have today. That was on display at the Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. After I guess it was his grandchildren's pull toy for a while, and so after the Columbian Exposition, that statue that's now at the Penn State All Sports Museum was put on display. Statue, I guess you'd say. There it is, right there. The stuffed lion there at the All Sports Museum. That exact lion was on display in Old Main, the Old Main building on campus, as early as maybe 1900, soon after the exposition in Chicago. And I'm sure that's where Grandpa Joe saw it when he enrolled at Penn State in 1904. So Grandpa Joe was a four-year man on the Penn State baseball team. He was a third baseman. And his first year, freshman year, the team went on a road trip to Princeton. And when they got to Princeton, the legend is that Princeton had a mascot already, the Princeton Tiger. And in those days, the ball players would sort of get together and talk before a game. And the Princeton, one of the Princeton players said, "Well, we've got a Princeton Tiger, and he's going to tear you up today." And Grandpa Joe, thinking fast, said, "Yeah, well, in State College, we've got the Nittany Lion, and he's going to chew up your Princeton Tiger today." And in fact, they did. The Penn State team beat Princeton that day, I think 8-1. And Joe went on to promote the Nittany Lion as the Penn State mascot throughout his time at Penn State. In 1906, he, as a junior, I guess as a junior, he helped found what was then the Penn State humor magazine called The Lemon. And Grandpa Joe published a poem in The Lemon, the kind of doggerel that was popular back then, saying, "Hey, the Nittany Lion should be our mascot. Students, what do you think? We should adopt the Nittany Lion." And I understand in 1908, the Nittany Lion was adopted as the official mascot of Penn State. It's all in that great book that Jackie Esposito and Stephen Herb wrote, called The Nittany Lion. It's a great book, and a lot more of the lore and Grandpa Joe's story is there in that book. And I think anybody that's really interested in the legend of Penn State and the Nittany Lion should get their hands on a copy of that book.
And look what it's become today, Chris, right? We have the song "Hail to the Lion." We have the beloved Nittany Lion mascot that we see at all of our sporting events and all of the major events on campus. We have the Lion Shrine, which is the second most photographed place in the whole state of Pennsylvania. I believe the first, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking towards John Petishnock, might be the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. I don't know how they know how many photographs are taken, especially nowadays with digital cameras. But it is all tied back to some smack talk between your grandfather and the Princeton baseball team. When you see those symbols of our best, right? When you see families year after year after year getting their picture taken on the Lion Shrine, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to kind of your family's legacy continuing to live on here at Penn State?
Oh, it's heartwarming to see that and to see people enjoying the Nittany Lion legend and enjoying their visit to the shrine. I was there this past summer and with my daughter, and part of the family tradition is to take the kids to the Lion Shrine and have them sit on the lion's back and take their picture. And we did that with my baby daughter when she was just born, and went back again this summer when she was 19. So it's really it's gratifying to see people enjoying the legend and becoming aware of Grandpa Joe and those days 120 years ago, and maybe getting some appreciation of how different things were back then.
Earlier in the week, your grandfather, certainly even after he left Penn State, remained a part of all things that celebrated the Nittany Lion. And you have this amazing artifact that you pulled out and showed us. I'm wondering if you would show the audience the gift that was given to your grandfather by Heinz Warnke.
Yeah, it's I guess it's here back over my left shoulder. It's been in the family ever since the dedication ceremony. I guess the audience can see it there. A number of these statues were made as keepsakes from the same stone that the Nittany Lion statue itself was made from. And these little statues, I guess, were there's this dedication ceremony there. You see it on screen now. I guess at that dedication ceremony, they gave out a number of mementos, keepsakes, little statues of the lion. And my understanding is that they were actually done by Paul Warnke, the sculptor who created the shrine that we have today. That's been in my family since the dedication ceremony, and I expect it always will be.
There are a lot of replicas that look like that one, but there are very few, I think 15 to 20 that he carved out of the original 8-ton block of Indiana limestone that our Nittany Lion has been carved out of. So you are holding a treasured piece of Penn State history there. Chris, we want to thank you for joining us on Football Letter Live, for helping to tell the story of the legend behind how we became the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Sure, guys. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Chris. All right, John Petishnock back in the studio with me. John, I'm probably going to be wrong about this, but was Chris the first non-Penn State alum we've had on Football Letter Live?
Maybe.
Maybe.
My inclination is to say no, but I don't know. I think,
well, wonderful Penn State family, right? I mean, the Lion Shrine and their the contributions of his grandfather to Penn State history is it's legendary, right? It's the symbol of our best.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're actually the one who said this line, Penn Staters by degree or by desire. And so, I mean, certainly you talk about being a Penn State or a Penn State family. How many times has he been at the Nittany Lion Shrine or watching a Penn State game and people are going crazy over the mascot, and he would think, like, if they only knew, like, about my grandfather and kind of that backstory. But he's right. Jack Esposito, Stephen Herb wrote this really wonderful book. And so we were doing some research and we thought, how are we going to pare everything down to like a 15-minute interview? Because we could have done like a 2-hour documentary on this. And so certainly really appreciate Chris. Again, it was just kind of like dumb luck on my part running into him this summer up at the Nittany Lion Shrine. He was standing by the plaque with, Joe Mason, his grandfather, in the story. And he kind of looks over and just gives me this nod. And he's like, do you know who this is? I'm like, what, Joe Mason? He's credited. He's like, yeah, that's my grandfather. And so I was just gobsmacked, and we ended up talking for 10 or 15 minutes. And like, I told everybody I met for like the next week, I'm like, you will never believe who I met. And so, yeah, certainly appreciate Chris coming on. And yeah, there are stories that you can only hear from him, from other people. You know what I mean? You might hear other things from third hand. But yeah, to have that sculpture from Heinz Warnke, that's awfully special.
That's absolutely special. Well, John, my fillings in my teeth are loosening right now because of our next guest. I can't imagine what it was like being hit by him as a Big Ten wide receiver. But we have all Big Ten performer David Macklin with us tonight. Yeah,
I'll go ahead and we can bring on David and I'll intro him, and then we can kind of go back and forth with the interview here. And so, again, David Macklin, Letterman cornerback, 3-year starter, all Big Ten in '98 when he led the Big Ten in interceptions with 6. Worth noting, his Penn State teams won 39 games in 4 years. So that's, you talk about averaging almost 10 wins a season. Currently living in LA as the president of his own company. He's involved with various community initiatives, flag football initiatives, much more. David, we're going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then we can like bring you on and have you talk to the audience. And so, David Macklin, welcome to Football Letter Live. How are you doing, sir?
I am great. I am blessed. I am ecstatic. I'm just happy, John and Paul. I appreciate you all for having me on. Hello to the PSU Nation. We are Penn State. I miss you all, and glad I got a chance to connect with you all. And it's been a fun year. It's been great watching these young guys scrap out there, and I look forward to them finishing strong.
That was emphatic and enthusiastic, David. You've got me fired up for this interview now. So
I mean, think about it, John. We've never had a monologue like that. It's like Saturday Night Live. David's like ready for prime time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, a lot of times we like to start, how did Penn Staters, they become a Nittany Lion? What's their origin story? During your recruiting process, and you were looking at colleges and where you wanted to be a student athlete, what about Penn State stood out? And was there anything about the coaches and their recruiting message that made you think, Penn State's going to be the place where I can thrive?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Newport News, Virginia, where, Virginia is a place of sports. Played basketball, ran track, played football, and got a chance to play against some great talents in high school. Allen Iverson, Michael Vick, Plexico Burris, guys that have gone on and played and have done some great things professionally as well and in life. But it was the summer. My father was a football coach, obviously a track coach as well, and a teacher. And he would go up to Penn State in the summers and coach camps. He had a couple offers, opportunities to coach on the college level, but he didn't want to leave his boys. My brother ran track. He also played football. He was older than I, but my father was definitely a huge presence in our life. So I went up to Penn State one year for one summer for a camp, and I guess I wowed some folks. But back home I was still, causing a lot of noise in the district as well in basketball and football. So there I was offered. My sophomore year going into my junior year, a full scholarship at Penn State. Soon after, Michigan, Tennessee, basically all the teams across the country started really noticing my talent. And my eyes from the start had been focused on Penn State as far as being my first pick. I knew that they had guys like Kajana Carter there who was leaving out in '94. And then we got Curtis Enos in, and we got a lot of other great backs that came in before me. But when I got to Penn State, they thought my talent, meaning Joe and his staff, thought my talent could go either way. And they immediately flipped me over to corner, which ended up being a great decision on their part. And really, I think, added to my career, not only collegiately, but professionally, 10 years, and being able to make an impact in that capacity. So I played, obviously played defensive back in high school, but my mind was set on playing running back in college, wherever school I had picked. But again, they made that decision for me. So my choices were Penn State, Tennessee, and Michigan. It's kind of far as where I was looking to go. And being that I had my roots already at Penn State and got a chance, the coaches got to see me up front and live, Fran Ganner. And at the time, Greg Schiano was there, defensive back coach at Penn State. And he was talking to me every day at camp that I was there. So it was great to go through that process. The process is totally different now. These guys are being seen without even having to go to camps. Obviously, coaches still want them to go into camps, but seeing the game as it is now, I don't think it has changed. You still got to see guys up front. I think it's good to interact with some of these young guys and seeing how they interact personally outside of social media. So same game, different day. Obviously, we have a lot more around it, but it makes it that more exciting to watch what goes on in collegiate athletics and see what our alma mater is doing.
Yeah, David, you mentioned coming in not too far removed from that team that went to and won the Big Ten title, played in the Rose Bowl, right? We talked about your 39 wins here as a Nittany Lion. You got to play against some of those teams that were recruiting you, especially especially Michigan, and I think you have a couple I told you so's for those guys. Talk a little bit about what you remember about being a football player here at Penn State. I know we asked this question a lot, and John and I are thinking, oh, he's going to talk about the bowl game against Kentucky or against Texas A&M. And then you all end up talking about the people, talking about the guys you're in the locker room with. What stands out for you?
The journey, great question, Paul. The journey from coming in and stepping on campus as a freshman, really the grind and grit of understanding what it meant to be playing as a true freshman, doing all the dirty work, playing hard on every play. You did that anyway, but scrapping and calling on special teams to really solidifying yourself doing spring ball. My freshman year, I was playing basketball and football, so it was a lot for me my freshman year. But really, every step of the way, competing in spring ball, earning a position on the defense, being able to perform my sophomore year in some big games. We had I know you remember the Ohio State game at home where we won it. We closed it out at the end to really just understanding what it meant to be a defensive back, to be a defensive player on the Penn State team, setting the tone, obviously, understanding what it meant to really take pride in being a Penn State defensive back and being a defensive player at Penn State and what that meant. So for me, from stepping foot on the field to being in class every day, Joe really was a stickler for us going to class, making sure we showed up. He was on top of us all the time on that. And, no matter what our GPA was, had the GA guys come in and check on us while we were in the classroom, just peep their head in, making sure guys were in class. The little things that you just remember. You just say, wow, I wonder if teams are doing that now. I wonder if coaches are having their guys go around and check, make sure the guys are in class, and making sure that we presented ourselves as gentlemen, not only on the field, but off the field. And then working hard in practice, practicing, being great and seeing how that carry over into the game. And, I had learned how to perfect working very hard in practice. And when game time came, it was just fun. I mean, you didn't get tired because you had guys like JT, John Thomas, and Jeremy, who's now with the Carolina Panthers as strength coach. You had guys like that who would really, challenge you every day as far as being in the weight and conditioning program. So when we got into the game time, that was just fun. That was just time for us to let it loose. Guys like Brandon Short, guys like LeVar Arrington, Anthony King, Derek Fox, just memories of guys, Aaron Harris, Chaffee Fields, Rashard Casey, just guys who you just really still, it seems like yesterday, man. Just we grew up together. We were in big games together. The game down in Miami where Chaffee caught the game-winning touchdown, where we as a defense held, those guys down, Frank Gordon, those guys, Santana Moss. I mean, guys who really did great things in college and went on and did great things in the NFL. To be able to say we were some of those teams that competed with those guys on a high level, it's really special. So I could talk to you guys hours about just some of the memories at Penn State. But what I do want the Penn State nation to understand is that playing for Joe Paterno, playing for Jerry Sandusky, playing for Tom Bradley, playing for Larry Johnson, Kenny, just all of these coaches that we played for, Bill Kennedy, Kenny Jackson, man, they laid it out for us every day. Those guys were working hard in the coaching room every day in practice. They were laying it on the line for us. I enjoyed my college years, and we went 7-8-0 before we lost on a Hail Mary against Minnesota. But I sit back and I think, man, we had, I wish that we could have left with a national championship, but I took away so much more. I took away a great education in business. I took away great friends, great community, being a part of a Nittany Penn State family, alumni across the world. I lived in Phoenix for 18 years. Pete Lasicki is the president over there. I mean, just people that I've been able to just be friends with over the years in LA, Penn State Association, and being here in Atlanta now, the Penn State Alumni Association is just huge. And just being able to be a part of a huge family, man. I mean, from stepping foot as a freshman on that football field to where I'm at now, it just really, it's just so much to talk about as far as the impact that Penn State has had on me. So I'm just looking for bigger and better things in the future.
All right, David, we're not surprised too often here on Football Letter Live, but you have sent me down a rabbit hole here that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to dig my way out. I don't think we quite knew that you played basketball at Penn State your first year. So let me tell you, that team went on to be, first of all, when you played, it was one of the youngest teams in the country. A lot of freshmen and sophomores. You brought up Pete Lasicki's name from Whitehall, Pennsylvania. Pete was leading scorer on that team as a junior, but you played with Pete Lasicki. You played with Calvin Booth, Garrett Stevens was on that team. I'm Tinkus Pettigrew was on the team.
Ryan Bailey.
Ryan Bailey. Yeah, I mean it was and you played for Jerry Dunn on that.
And Calvin is GM now.
Oh, we know, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about this or not. So I hope compliance isn't listening, but I think his son just verbally committed to Penn State. So
Calvin?
Yeah, so the Booth family legacy will live on here at Penn State. You mentioned a lot of names in your last answer, but one that I think we talk about on every show is Coach Joe Paterno. Talk about some of the life lessons you learned from Coach, or when you're in situations and you hear that voice in your head, kind of coaching you through it. Is it in the voice of Coach Joe Paterno?
Oh yeah, and Joe was a little older. I mean, he wasn't as older, but he was a little older when I got there in '96. But he was stern. He was still moving around. He was running. But you just knew that he really cared about you. He really cared about you. He wanted you to be the best that you can be on the field, of course. That's what he did. That's how he became who he was. But as far as a man, he set me down. He said, David, we think you're a hell of an athlete. You're a great running back, but I feel like you're going to be an even better cornerback, and you'll play a lot of years in the NFL. He spoke that into my life. And, the Bible says the power of life and death is in the tongue. And that's parents. We have to be careful, and we have to be mindful of not only parents, but business people, encouraging your employees, encouraging your family members, that what you speak sometime, you don't understand in that moment, that can be a life or death situation verbally in that person's life. So what Joe spoke to me in that moment, even though I was upset, I ended up, after our meeting, I called my dad. We hadn't even gone out to camp yet, first day of camp. And I said, Dad, they're moving me to corner. He said, well, that's all right. He said, you can play anywhere on the field. And I said, well, I know that, but I want to play running back. And I said, these other schools wanted me to play running back. And as I look back on the days, and I played in my first game against USC, and Curtis Ena ran for all those yards in '96 at John Stadium. And I saw those hits he was taking, and I said, you know what? There's a bigger purpose for what I'm supposed to be doing. And of course I could be a running back, but I think I'm gonna make this corner thing work. And it ended up being one of the great decisions, not only for me, but obviously what Joe and them made for me as well. So that's the type of person he was. I mean, it takes a special person to be able to look at an athlete and say, hey, look, we know he can do this, or we know she can do this, but this piece is not only going to help us here, but it's going to help this person later on in their life. So that was a point for me that, even though I didn't understand it, even though I didn't like it, Joe made those tough decisions.
Absolutely. Hey, giving and delivering those hits is a lot better than taking those hits, right? But guys like Curtis Enos and Kajana Carter and Saquon Barkley and another Virginia Beach guy, DJ Dozier, they are responsible for a lot of great defensive players, right? Because no one was going to get into the game at their position. And so there were a lot of other linebackers and defensive backs that were created. I know we have some video, John, of David delivering some of that punishment and some of his 6 interceptions that he had during that 1998 season. So, David, what as you see, probably bigger shoulder pads than a defensive back would wear today, and
Yeah.
what are some of the memories that are coming back to you here?
Oh man, just somebody called it one time like a pack of bees swarming honey. That's how our defense was, man. We all wanted to meet at the ball. We just wanted to meet at the ball. Here at Ohio State, we didn't have any fear. At some point in the game, corners have to come to the defensive back and say, "Hey, coach, put this game on me. All right, let's get it's we can't play cover 2 the whole game. There are going to be some times when, you're going to have to protect us here and there. You might have an offense that you might be facing that has 2 maybe great receivers, but we knew as cornerbacks we had to challenge. We had to challenge our opponents. And that's my thought process going into what we did as a defense in those years, man. We had to put it on our back sometime because we knew that we were going to be in games, man, where we couldn't just ask the offense to put up 50 and 60 points. We had to create some turnovers on defense. So we did that, man. You see LeVar jumping over, we did everything we had to do and tried to do to create some turnovers, man. And we have fun doing it.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to a name that you mentioned earlier, right? You talk about growing up in the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area, and you dropped Plexico Burris on us. Now, I saw Plexico on the field there against Michigan State when you got that interception. John's got a picture of you playing against him in the NFL. Like, what's the trash talk that goes back and forth between you and Plexico now that it seems like you owned him during his football career? Every time he came up against David Macklin with the Colts, see, there he is. There's Plexico with the Steelers. You always seem to come out with the upper hand.
Well, Plexico he got me 1 or 2 times, but Plex and I go back to high school, man. We beat them in the regionals in basketball, and we ran against each other in track. But Plex and I kept in touch over the years at Penn State. You want to talk about moments, man. Plex was at JUCO. Plex was down and out, man. He would say, "Mac, I see you on TV," and he was down, man. He was down. I said, "Plex, all you need is 1 year, man." I said, "You're a great athlete. Just keep doing what you got to do there at JUCO." He would talk to me every now and then, and he called me one day. He said, "Mac, man, I'm out of here." He said, "I'm going to Michigan State." He was only at Michigan State for 1 year. I said, "Great news, Plex." I mean, we celebrated together, him and James Boyd as well. He's from that side of the water. James knew Plexico as well. James played at Indian River. Plex played at Green Run. But went to Michigan State 1 year, man. It was in and out. I said, "Man, you got the athletic ability." And that 1 year, man, I was so proud of him. And he ended up marrying a Penn State girl, if you knew about that too, Tiffany, who ran track at Penn State. But I was so happy for him, and we go back, man. But we were 2 competitors. He's a great talent, man. Has done a lot of great things, and just so you Paul, you talk about all those memories, man. It seems like yesterday.
Well, hey, and another one I saw there, this one made me smile big too, was it seemed like you got the best of Tom Brady on one of those plays. How many times are you watching now Tampa Bay or back when the Patriots were doing their thing and said, I got the best of that guy once?
Man, I look back at Tom, man, and him and I got drafted together in 2000. He went, 5th, 6th round? I mean, I picked him off in college. I picked him off in the NFL. And I'm like, man, this guy is still playing in 2022. I've been done in 2010. 2000 to 2010. He's still playing at 22. But one thing Tom has done, he's learned, he's mastered the quarterback position. He's mastered it. He knows how to stay in that box. And even though the game is fun now, watching some of these guys run, but the guys who have won the most championships stay in that box. And me and my dad, we argue about this at times. I'm not a big fan of guys running the ball, a la Griffin, who played for my best Washington Redskins. But it's a highlight until one play. And obviously in football, we all are one play away from a career-ending injury. But your chances are high as a quarterback if you can stay in that box. And Tom Brady, who else? Peyton Manning. And it's not that quarterbacks don't have success running, but those guys have proven that you don't have to be the best of a runner to be effective. And that's what Tom has done. And it's earned him, what is he, 22 years in now? I mean, how many? I'm like, man, if I see that guy today, I'm just like, man, you really mastered that position.
Absolutely. David, talk about some of the great work that you're now doing in your post NFL career. We talked about your company off air, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about Glory Days and how you still have football as part of your life.
Oh yeah. Thank you for asking about that, Paul. Glory Days Form 4 Incorporated is an organization that I have formulated a few years ago, where we are working to implant youth leagues, flag football leagues, and also adult tournaments in different sectors around the country. We just did a tournament where we had 80 teams in Roswell, New Mexico. Next year we'll triple that. We're working on a youth league here in Atlanta, in a couple of tournaments in the summer in Williamsburg, Virginia as well. We would love to do something there at State College as well. But all of our tournaments, we have a give back component to it. We gave over $2,500 to the New Mexico Academy there in Roswell, where some of the kids came out and helped put away trash, help facilitate the event. So this is something that I'm adamant about. Our youth leagues are targeting youth as far as on the mentorship side, pushing accountability. That's where we're at with that. We are looking to get pro athletes in place with our youth leagues to be able to be a mentor, obviously, and directors. That's kind of help differentiate ourselves from a lot of the other youth leagues out there. So I have a different approach with our youth league, a more holistic approach, to where we are looking to press into these young people life lessons that they're going to take them outside of sport, so that they can be able to be impactful people in the future. So I understand that it's not all about a kid making it to the professional level. They're going to be great business people. They're going to be doctors. They're going to be lawyers. So we want them to leave away with something from our league that they won't necessarily normally get in other leagues that they possibly are a part of.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of flag football. Mm-hmm. I think with the physicality that's involved with playing football, I'm the father of a son, right? He's 22 years old now, but we were really intentional about not letting him play tackle football until he was in 9th grade. And the reason is, you know more about this than I do, but I think that there are people who are physically ready to play football, but not mentally ready to get that hit and to get back up again, right? Yeah. We wanted to make sure that he was kind of mentally prepared for, that first time that you get hit and you have to get back up again. I think sometimes, kids start playing too young, and it's not as much fun as it could be, and it's maybe too physical than they're ready for. But no one has a bad time playing flag football.
Right. And as you said, Paul, I mean, it's a contact sport. And I mean, like boxing, the least amount of times you get hit, the better chances you have of surviving. At some point, these kids are going to want to play tackle. Some may want to go play other sports. But, as you see with rugby now, rugby has always been around. I have always been a stickler for making sure that at the last minute I'm moving my head out the way and using my body. I've always played that way. I feel like the flag aspect helps kids, guys and girls at that age, help them to understand how to play the game, understand how the game is supposed to be played, and implementing ways in there to get them to understand better ways of tackling, better ways of making that contact, try to move that head out of the way as much as possible. So those are some of the teaching aspects. There are going to be some kids that need that physicality. They're going, like wrestling, they're going to need it. But if we can help them play the game safer and we can get them to play it smarter. I had guys that came in camp sometime, and I'm in the league in NFL, and we got rookies come in, and guys that are hitting, they're hitting walls, and I'm just like, dude, you're a baller, you are a hitter, but you won't make it a game. you just won't, because you got to understand that this thing is like martial arts. You have to play in a way that you can get back up and that you can be effective and that you can think. So that's what I want to press on to these young people within flag. Like I said, I approach it from a holistic standpoint, but at the same time, getting these kids to understand that there are life lessons around sports that it takes. Parents ask me, hey, how can my kid become a professional athlete? No, it starts from them being kids. It starts from them playing everything. And we just want to pour that on them, love on them. And if they're able to get to that next level, then it'll happen.
Yeah, I love that message, David. It's I think it's the right thing for parents to hear. You see in the baseball world now, at least the youth baseball world, too many kids I think are specializing, and they're not playing basketball. They're not playing 3 or 4 sports year round, which I think is really how athletes develop. I love that you brought up wrestling. If someone wants to be a great football player, go wrestle. Right? Go and wrestle in the winter, and you're going to learn a lot about humility because you're out there in your underwear, right? On an island where you have no one else to blame, but you're going to learn footwork and leverage and positioning and all those things that I think are critical, not only for offensive linemen, right, but even out on the corner, right? How to get that initial press and all of that. So I think your message is the right message. We have a lot of fans here. Linda Rowan wants to know if Glory Days is doing anything in the Boston, Massachusetts area.
Linda, how you doing? We are. All right. We haven't set anything in place yet for Boston, but you can reach us at glorydays44.org. You can look at our Instagram. You can send us a message. We are looking at cities to come in and do tournaments, 2 to 3 day tournaments. As far as youth leagues, our model is every tournament that we have in cities that we have, we want to be able to leave a footprint there eventually with the youth league. So we can always get that conversation started. One thing I love about being from Penn State, we have a lot of alumni across the country. So I am open to those ideas. I'm open to those conversations. So you can reach us, like I said, at info@glorydays44.org or david@glorydays44.org.
Excellent. David, I'm coming to Atlanta. I'm going to look you up when I'm down there.
Please do.
Yeah, we're coming down in January for the Diamonds Over Georgia Thon fundraiser that they do down there. So I'll definitely look you up and check in and see how things are going. David Macklin, a absolute star, all Big Ten performer, and really swelling thy fame of dear old state and everything that he's doing afterwards. David, thanks for joining us on Football Letter Live.
Paul, thank you.
All right, good luck to you.
All right, you too.
All right, bringing John Petishnock back on. But
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. I looked up at 7:55, and I know I've run over, but I have more questions for David. Like, I know we say this every week, we have to have him back on. I wanted to go down the whole Allen Iverson rabbit hole and talk about, there's trash talk that happens between receivers and cornerbacks, but can you imagine having to guard Allen Iverson and the things you hear coming out of that guy?
Yeah, I tell you what, a good practice for being a Big Ten cornerback, try to guard Allen Iverson on the basketball court. Like that's some good practice for him. And yeah, he throws out 1 or 2 names, and like you and I are like, okay, like now I want to ask about this, and this. Yeah, well, look,
absolutely. We didn't even get to Michael and Marcus Vick, right? I mean, chasing those guys around on the field. Thanks again to David Macklin and to Chris Mason for coming out tonight and joining us on Football Letter Live. John, we've got chapters. David was plugging the Phoenix chapter with Pistol Pete Lisicki out there. But we have chapters all over the country doing game watch parties. I know they send us a bunch of pictures. But thank you to all of our chapters. I know I saw Judy Wolf's name in the comments, and I think she's actually at a chapter meeting right now. So shout out to Judy and all the great work that they're doing in Orange County. There's the Cincinnati chapter, and there's no better group to crash our pep rally at Indiana than the Cincinnati chapter. There's their president, and Hannah certainly made an impression when we were able to talk to her. But you see Penn Staters gathering to cheer on our Nittany Lions.
Yeah, we've got Cincinnati, the first couple of photos. This is Pittsburgh. We should have Jacksonville coming up. Yeah, the Cincinnati chapter, they bus to the Indiana game. And when the bus parked, they got out and they deployed strategically. Like they have done this before where they go to a game and tailgate. Like people were grabbing things, setting up. It was really impressive. And just for what it's worth, so when I was in not just a quick detour, I had lunch with Pete Lisicki when I went to a basketball hoops camp. So anytime I hear Pete Lisicki's name, I just instantly smile. And David's right. He's out there in Phoenix leading the chapters. When we went out to the Fiesta Bowl, he got some run, which was well-deserved. And we had Cincinnati chapter, Pittsburgh chapter, Jacksonville chapter. So we constantly do those call-outs for chapters in the Football Letter email on social. And so, please send us your photos. We're thrilled to throw them up here on the screen during the episode and on social. And so, we're here for you. We're here to support you and kind of shine a light on what you're doing.
Absolutely. Shout out to Tom Signorello doing some great work down in the Jacksonville chapter. Pete Lisicki, I first met him. Well, I first met him at a Phoenix chapter event, but remember him from high school and how he never met a shot he didn't like. If he had space, he was tossing it up there. So, hey John, you were pulling double duty tonight with helping with the interviews and producing. Thank you for all you've done on Football Letter Live tonight. Again, a shout out to Vincent Longaro. I know he and his family are probably out there in Michigan tuning in, and we just want to make sure that he knows him and his family are on our mind. Go to the game day page of the Alumni Association. Visit us at alumni.psu.edu to find out all the ways that you can connect with the Penn State Alumni Association. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.